The third entry in the series is a beautiful reimagination of both Final Fantasy 1 and 2. While this does not mix up well by the end, its fantastical journey will surely grip many people. Without further ado, let's dive into the story. Final Fantasy 3 starts like the first Final Fantasy game. There were crystals, now they are gone, but we got monsters in return and need the chosen ones. We make our characters, and when I saw that the character nameplate was empty, I got the feeling something is wrong. I suspected they have no personality and named them as soulless as they indeed turn out to be. The 4 characters are orphans and explore a cave. There's a cave-in, some combat, and then crystal. The crystal tells us we are the 4 warriors of light and need to find the other crystals and save the world. We return to our village and everyone believes us, like the crystal has a Twitter profile and tweeted this. We set out and the first village we visit already has a huge problem. The Djinn made everyone invisible, which seems more like a prank than the deeds of evil incarnate. We visit the nearby castle and everyone besides one guard who was on the toilet is also invisible. We learn that the princess, Sarah, set out to defeat the Djinn and we follow her. There is a slight problem however. The cave is beyond a body of water, and the king does only give us the canoe, which we could need to rescue his kingdom after we solve this. We go to the nearby village where an invisible Cid awaits us. Like in the previous games, Cid is the creator of the airship and lends it to us. We find Sarah in the cave, however she got there, and defeat the Djinn. The curse is lifted and everyone is visible again. The king now gives us the item we could have needed before. We can also visit Sarah for the rest of the game, who always yearns for the first named character. In my case it's Red Guy. This is also where it dawned on me that we were unnecessary. See, Sarah lives in a tower on the 5th floor. There is no bathroom. Every time she wants to get her body fluids out, she has to climb the whole tower again. Sarah is ripped, every day is leg day for her. You know beach girls who can break melons in their 5s? Yeah, Sarah can do that too, but with rocks. The early airship in this game was a ruse by the developer because shortly after leaving it breaks down and we travel by foot again. We meet Cid's wife who's ill and need an elixir. This massive quest of rescuing Cid's wife, the reason he was traveling in the first place, is easily resolved, as in this very town there is an elixir on a grass patch. Cid is overjoyed and thanks us for our 5 minutes of work and basic human observation skills. We resume our adventure as Cid is fixing his airship. When we try to climb a mountain we get taken by Bahamut to feed his children. In its nest there is another adventurer with amnesia. This one's name is Dash and we escape from Bahamut. Then we meet a height-challenged person, a gnome. Dash gave us a spell called Mini that turns us into gnomes. As gnomes we have very little physical prowess, but our magical abilities are impervious to this handicap. We need to be small to reach the Viking Cove, where the pirates seem to be stuck, because of the Nepto-Dragon, who will attack anyone who leaves the cove by ship. The reason for Nepto-Dragon's behavior is that his temple has been ransacked, and an eye of his statue was stolen. We follow with Mini and retrieve the eye. Now we have a ship and travel to Tokul village. The residents are terrified of the kingdom of Argus and won't interact with us in a meaningful way, so we proceed. Eventually, by traveling around, we come to Gulgan Gulch, where we get a key to a tower. Dash is still with us and he tells us that after his memory loss, he fell in love with a village girl in Cid's city. For the tower we need to be frogs, which is similar to being a gnome, but now all our abilities are hindered. Dash is an ancient one, a very old human race, and was put into sleep so he can wake up when the tower is in danger. The engine of the tower is going haywire and it needs a human sacrifice. Well, de facto. Dash says he needs to stabilize the flame and that can only be done from inside the furnace. If you design something that way, it is effectively based on sacrificing your own life. Dash jumps into the flames and we now travel to the outer continent. Here we find the dwarves living in a cave. They protect the horns of ice inside a magical barrier, but one of the horns got stolen by Gasco. We follow and defeat him. We can very clearly see a shadow following us and even interact with it, but nothing happens. This is very bad. Because on the next beat, when we try to return the horns, the shadow reveals itself to be Gasco, who tricked us so he can get both horns. If the magical barrier is such an obstacle, how did he obtain the first horn? Also, both players and characters saw him. This is obviously stupid, because the game literally takes our agency away from us and passes the idiot ball. We follow him and kill him. We then return the horns and a ghost or something appears and tells us that we have to come to Tokul. It's a trap and we get abducted by Hein. He betrayed the kingdom of Argos and imprisoned the king. He did not invest in better prison cells, however, and we easily escape and defeat him. We return to Sid and he transforms our ship to a modular airship. Now one of the biggest and genuinely good surprises of the game happen. We fly out and the whole continent is part of the bigger world. You know, in Final Fantasy 1 when you see the map and this is where you play, and then in Final Fantasy 2 you see also the map and you know this will be the continent. In Final Fantasy 3 you see the map and say, okay, this is the map, this will be the whole play area, and no, it's much bigger. It's a trick. Right now it's all water, but there is one location we can visit. On the damaged ship we meet Aria, who becomes our companion. She is portrayed as a fair maiden and the priestess of the water temple, and she begs us to help her reach her workplace, and we do so. But an assassin throws a dagger at us and Aria sacrifices herself to save us. This is a dramatic scene and Aria gets her own piece of music for this, the first one a character in Final Fantasy up till now has gotten. It is however downright funny how messed up the victory pose is right before her corpse. Whenever we get an item, an important one, we make something like a victory pose, very much like Link does so in Zelda. But because Aria gave us the item right as she dies, we now make this victory pose before her corpse. Now the water temple is conquered and so the water level falls and reveals the real world. Our ship is for now anchored and we have to free it. I think the game has a continuity problem within cities. See, I did what many people would do in my position. I explored the place a bit. At this point I did not know that our ship was tied up and I need to free it. I enter a building and talk to a person and we say to him that we need to enter the sewer so we can get Leviquer's shoes, so we can get our ship. This is the same way I also found out about this. I had no idea what Leviquer's shoes are, nor why I did need them. In this village there's a quadruple of red-haired old men that pretend to be the Warriors of Light and we can see them spying on us. They are more funny than harmful and we save them in the sewers, which continues the trend of having obstacles only for the players. NPCs don't care about closed or locked doors, they just appear wherever they want, and we have to obtain obscure items to progress. One of which are the Leviquer's shoes. The witch in the sewers throws them at us, but Team Adel 4 saves us. The first throw was a trap. The witch then trusts us as the quadruple vouches for us and gives us the correct shoes. We only need them to pass quicksand, so we can get into a gold manor, defeat a villain named Goldor and obtain the keys to the ship. I have no idea how it come to this. In this game we defeat djinns, dragons, medusas, iron golems and titans. But a simple chain around our ship, quicksand or simple wooden doors are an obstacle to us. Now our ship is free and we explore the game world, and when we enter a walled city they shoot the ship down. The king is behaving irrational and in a tavern we meet Prince Aelus, just as he is harassed by some thugs. We accompany him to the king who previously has banished him. We have an audience the next day, but the king enters the bedroom and attacks his son. He is fighting with himself because the advisor, Gigametz, is controlling him. With his last willpower, the king takes the dagger and kills himself to save his son. We fight Gigametz, but the king cannot be saved. The kingdom is restored and Alice is the new king, and hopefully has more than one bedroom for guests. Gigametz is one of the first puzzle bosses in the series. He's absurdly strong if you don't change your job to Dragoons. Then he's absurdly easy. Many people in the city tell you that Gigametz is weak against the Dragoon's jump ability, which is a weird rumor to begin with. It is also not really helpful, because you did not know when you encounter Gigametz. I saw the cutscene and lost against him, then reloaded, changed to Dragoons and won easily. If you have this kind of puzzle box, then at least give players an option to change the job before the fight. The Kingdom of Saronia prepares a gift for us. Aelis instructed the nerds in the cellar to provide a new airship. We travel to Doga's mansion. Doga is the student of a legendary mage called Noah. Alongside Doga he had two other students, Une and Xandi. The latter is the antagonist of this game. Doga enchants our ship so it can dive. Underwater we enter the Temple of Time and obtain Noah's loot. The loot can be used to wake up Une. Une helps us to retrieve the Invincible, the third and final airship. Now we enter the final dungeon, but to progress we need 2 keys. Doga and Une help us, but to charge up the keys we have to release massive amounts of energy. Doga and Une say this can only be done in battle, which is and sounds like massive bullshit. We kill both and obtain the keys. In the tower we come to a point where 5 dragon statues stand. This is a trap and they awaken, but Doga helps us by getting people we helped previously to freeze the dragons in place. Personally, I think we could have defeated the dragons easily. One of the people Doga gets to help us is one of the quadruplets from the Sewer Witch arc. This screams to me they did plan for 5 dragons, but they could not find any more important NPCs to help us. With the dragons detained, we confront Xandi. He's quickly killed, but the Cloud of Darkness defeats us. The Cloud is the final boss of the game, but I argue it's not the antagonist. We get help from our friends and stand-in NPCs and go to the World of Darkness. A recurring theme in this game is cycles. Many NPCs throughout the game tell us that an Age of Light and an Age of Dark always cycle. Both ages are pretty bad because in the Age of Light, everything is destroyed by the Wrath of Light, and in the Age of Dark everything will be consumed by darkness. If one of these concepts win, then the world will enter the void, where nothing will happen anymore. So every millennia 4 Warriors of Light are chosen when the Age of Darkness approaches, and after that 4 Warriors of Darkness will be chosen against the light. We get help from the previous Warriors of Darkness and confront the Cloud. We get a small ending cutscene where we return every helper to their home and then live our own life in peace. Like in Final Fantasy II, let's talk about the gameplay first. They have gone back from the progress by use system and returned to the traditional experience and level up system. The combat did not receive any overhaul and is almost unchanged to Final Fantasy I and II. What is new is the job system. After each crystal and a secret dungeon, you obtain jobs. Jobs are vastly important, they dictate how your stats progress. If you have the job of a mage while you level up, your magical stats will increase more than your physical stats. They also enable special attacks, for example the jump from the Dragoon job. Equipment is also based on the job and you obtain job levels. Those are not tied to experience but by job action. Cast 5 times a healing spell and you get another job level if you are a white mage. You could in theory get extremely high job levels right at the start. Your stats won't increase though, so it only affects damage slightly. In my game I have gone with 2 monks and 2 different mages, which was insanely strong. Black belts and monks only use their fists and they deal massive amounts of damage. In the last dungeon I obtained the ninja job, who can throw shurikens, the strongest attack in the game, and the sage job. This one is similar to a mage, but it can use black magic, white magic and summon magic. Summon magic will be familiar with modern enjoyers of Final Fantasy games. You can summon Shiva, Titan, Odin, Bahamut and many more. Those creatures will do an attack. that will deal massive amounts of damage. All summons are accompanied by something like a mini cutscene, as your team vanishes and the effects are better produced than normal magic attacks. The flaw of this system is obvious. Because stats are tied to jobs, you will never change a mage user to a warrior or vice versa, because that will be weak. There is more decision because you can change to different jobs within your specialty. If you have one character that has a melee job, you can change him from warrior to monk or dragoon, for example. I think the system is slightly better than Final Fantasy II. What is worse is the next part, the story. If I had to describe the problem with Final Fantasy III's story in 2 words, it would be unnamed arrow. Every story beat stands on its own and does not become relevant again. At first we save Sarah, and she says that she will await our return. On different occasions throughout the game we can visit her. It's an open world RPG after all, but she will always say the same phrase. There is no change or any new dialogue, even as we literally make the whole world reappear from being submerged in water. Sid and his wife can be visited again, but there is no point in it. The same is true for Argus Castle, for the City of the Ancient, for the Prince Aelus and everyone. Each character only matters within their arc, and then they become so irrelevant that they might as well cease to exist. This is by itself not a problem. The game's story is structured like Jules Verne's Journey books, or Pinocchio, or Gulliver's Travels. You meet one fantastical being after another and then you move on. In these books and fairy tales, the point however is that they are journeys. The characters are never met again, so it makes sense that they don't matter. Final Fantasy III however uses world building as a story vehicle, and it is open world. This does not mix well, as the obvious soulless-like features of each post-arc character becomes obvious. The story is conceptual in one direction, while the player interaction with the world is omnidirectional. If you can talk to old characters again, they should have at least something to say about major events, like the world being underwater or resurfacing. That I have only 5 characters come back by the end for the dragons, and one of them is hardly remembered, speaks volumes to me. It makes the problem more obvious, instead of hiding it. The world is also full of coincidence. We meet every character by absurd chances, right when we need them. Prince Aelus is met right at the time he's harassed by thugs in a random bar. Dash, the only awakened ancient, is also in Bahamut's nest right when we are. We meet the dwarves when their horn got stolen and so on. This makes the whole story feel artificial. A better way to construct a story is by logical conclusion. Instead of meeting Aelus by chance, we could obtain the information of his banishment by searching the city, and then we meet him because he probably can get us into the castle. We search for him instead of meeting him by chance. Instead of randomly meeting Dash, we could search for a way into the tower and someone tells us they saw Dash leaving it. Let's compare this to Final Fantasy II, where major characters appear multiple times and are relevant where they should be. And each time they have something new to say. Final Fantasy II was masterclass in having characters in a dynamically changing world, where they appear to be more than just NPCs. Our characters have the opposite problem. From the start they have no name, and while this could have been no problem, my suspicion will soon be validated. Our characters rarely speak, and if they do so as a unit. Most characters talk at us, not with us. We are often disjointed from the world. We don't worry about our village, we don't have fears, we don't have hobbies, we don't have friends. We don't have traits or problems. We are just there doing whatever the next character is yelling at us. The main characters, the protagonists, feel more like NPCs than the NPCs, which is the antithesis of a role-playing game. While other games like Persona also uses an unnamed protagonist, they do so for a reason. In those cases you can input your own decisions into your character. You can be mean, decline side quests or be polite. The player shapes the character, but because there are no decisions in Final Fantasy III, this is not possible. We are an empty vessel, to be filled by the player's decision, while the player does not have any decisions. This means our protagonist will always be just that, empty. I think that Square Enix agrees with me. Final Fantasy III has been re-released multiple times. I played the Pixel Remaster, which as I understand it are quite faithful to the original. There is however a 3D version, and in those the Warriors of Light have names and personality. I did not want to interrupt the series by a surprise 3D version, but if this is the only change that version brings, that would be a significant increase in character building. Final Fantasy III is a beautiful game that did not build on the strengths of Final Fantasy II. It was fun, but the overall reliance on non-stop combat gets boring by the end, as you just watch your characters automatically win. It is still worthwhile and an important part of gaming history. I hope you liked this review. Farewell.